What is up, guys? Welcome to Unreal Outdoors, and today I'm going to be going over fly fishing 101. So, with that, I'll be going over what types of flies to throw and what type of conditions and what type of areas. I'll be teaching you a little bit about fly rods and fly reels and how they work, and I will also just be giving the basic things you need to know, like setting the hook on fly fishing. So let's get right into this, and let's learn about this beautiful part of fishing. Okay, so you don't have to be a genius to know that fly fishing is a little bit different from other methods of fishing. Part of that is because of the type of bait you're throwing and the gear you're using. So let's start off with that gear. So here I have a fly rod. It is made by the White River Company, one of my favorite companies for fly fishing. And let's talk about the basics of how this rod works. So first thing, their eye loops are actually different from any other type of pole. So they just have that weird ring, and that just makes it so this yellow line you're seeing called the fly line can glide straight through those guides a lot easier. So a fly rod is typically a little bit longer and a lot lighter than most of your rods out there, and that's because you are throwing such a light bait. You're throwing flies, which really have no weight to them whatsoever. And I will be going over how to cast the fly rod in a later video, but for today's video I'm just going to go over how this stuff works. So unlike most rods where they're either rated in medium or medium heavy or light, a fly rod actually is weighted by numbers. So this is actually a 6-weight fly rod. You can get them lower, you can get them higher, but a 6-weight is a very good weight if you want to target all things like bass, trout, and just fly fish around. You know, not just target one species. But if you're going for extremely smaller fish, like, you know, very small creek trout or small panfish, stuff like that, you might want to drop down to a lighter fly rod, like a 3-weight would be awesome. And if you're targeting bigger fish, of course, jump up to something like an 8-weight or even a 12-weight if you're going huge saltwater. So with that though, it is very important to know the type of weight that you have depending on what type of fish you're using, because like I said, a fly rod is very light. This thing is very light, so you don't want to go fishing for something a lot bigger than your rod can handle and end up breaking it, because these things are beautiful and obviously no one wants broken gear. Second thing that makes a fly setup a little bit different from everything else is their reel. Obviously this looks like nothing like any other reel. This is a fly fishing reel, and it sits on the rod a little bit different too. It actually sits on the very base of the rod, not a little bit up high like all the other type of reels are, and it's this big, almost like wheel-like spool. So the reason for that is sometimes fly fishing, you actually don't do that much reeling. Most of the time you're just pulling in with your hands, but it's in a very convenient spot that makes it so you can keep a lot of pressure by holding your rod up, and you keep constant pressure on that fly line, which makes it so that the fish will not spit your hook, and that is why it's positioned in the way that it is. Now let's talk about that fly line stuff I keep talking about. So as you see here, this is normal fishing line. This is a 4-pound leader, and right about, let's see where he's at. If I keep pulling there, we get to this neon green, neon yellow chartreuse sort of color, and that is called the fly line. It's kind of a rubbery feeling line, and it's actually a heavy line. And the reason for that is when you're fly fishing, you are not casting your bait. Like I said, your fly is extremely light. So when you're fly fishing, you're actually casting this line. Like I said, I will make a video coming up here very soon, next week, on how to cast a fly rod. So this fly line is actually where you get most of your momentum and all your action comes in, and we'll explain what I mean by that right now. So one of the #1 jobs of the fly line is actually setting the hook. I know that sounds weird. What? You set the hook with your line? That's because the fly rod itself is too flimsy and too light to actually get that hook to stick well in the fish's mouth. So what you would do if you're going to set the hook on fly fishing, you'd obviously be holding your line down here like so, and you would actually pull on your fly line to set the hook instead of flipping your rod up or setting the hook with your rod. And that will make it so just that hook gets deeper in that fish's mouth and gets a little bit better of a hook set so he won't come off. So now that I've covered the major gear of fly fishing, let's break it down into the baits, the flies, and let's talk about what different flies work in what situations. So there are obviously tons and tons of different amount of flies, so I cannot cover them all in one video, but I'll be going over the basic ones that are my favorite and what type of conditions are the best to fish them in. So let's start off when I am fishing in a small creek, typically for smaller trout. So what I love to throw here, obviously my all-time favorite, is nymphs. They're extremely small, typically very colorful flies that represent very small insects. And the reason for that is when you want to picking your fly for fly fishing, you want to base it off what type of food the fish they're eating, because obviously if they're going to eat a fly, they are a sight predator. So you want to fool them with something that looks a little bit similar, you know, to what they're already eating, which is why a nymph or other type of baits, like other type of flies, for example, a stonefly, I was looking for it right here, a stonefly, are very, very good for creeks, because they're a lot smaller, they're symbolizing insects, and that's things that those trout or whatever thing you're fishing for in that creek are already feeding on. Two other phenomenal baits for fishing a creek when you're fly fishing is, first off, a salmon egg. This is literally a puff of fuzz. And these things are typically more of a sit and wait. You want it to drift in the current. You don't really want to give it that much action yourself. You just kind of want it to go in the current, and it's very, very good in post-spawn creek fishing. The reason for that is those trout are trying to give their children the best bet at living. So if they eliminate other trout's eggs, they will basically eliminate the competition. So that is a salmon egg, which is also very, very good. And then here I have probably my favorite of all time creek type of fly. This is a small weighted leech. So you see that bead head up there? That means this guy's weighted, so he'll sink a little bit better in the water, which is what I want to do if I'm fishing a little bit deeper of a creek. This guy takes the gold. A leech is just a small little thing. So like I said, it symbolizes an insect or a very, very small bait fish, and really just finds home in a creek. It just kills in a creek. And obviously you want to pick your colors depending on what colors of bait fish are there or what colors naturally work there. So for example, I have some neon greens that I like to fish when the water's a little bit more murkier, and that's really just because it's a little bit easier for the trout to see. That's what I typically target while fly fishing is trout, and they're extreme sight predators. So remember, you want to get them on the color, the presentation, everything. Now, what do you throw if you're lake fishing? Something I love to throw in lake fishing is I like to start to get my flies to get a little bit bigger. So here, if I can pop this guy out, this is a woolly booger. It's a weighted woolly booger, and it's a bigger fly, which means in that vast body of water, it's a bigger body of water, it has a more likely chance of being seen. So I love to throw these big woolly boogers. They are known for their just super feathery, fluffed upness. Like, I just call them fluff balls, dude. Like, can you see that compared to all the other flies? That thing is fluffy. And the cool thing is when that gets in the water, it will actually all become wet and kind of like come together and make, you know, kind of like a tail or a darting action like you get in something like a fluke or something like that. I'll also typically throw bigger leeches. So we got a big leech here now. I got them in another really awesome color right here. That was like a bronze rust color. This is a black with a green sparkle, which is I freaking love. Also a weighted leech if I want to fish a little bit deeper. And yeah, big leeches and big woolly boogers, and also streamers work fantastic when you're going to a lake. And you typically want to go to, you know, I like to fish points in the lake, you know, cast off on my points, or I also like to do in the backs of creeks and hit there where things will be sitting a little bit shallower, because, you know, obviously you're fly fishing. You're not going to get super deep. You can get deeper with these weighted heads, but you're still not going to get super deep. And here, so that's a weighted head. Let me show you what an unweighted head looks like. So this is an unweighted woolly booger. And see, he's usually just an eye loop. That's it. So that's the difference between those two. They still both sink, obviously, because the water will get and hold in all those feathers and bring them down a little bit, but the weighted heads sink a little bit more. Now, another type of fly that everyone should have, just in case it's that time of day and it's just working, is a popper fly. So here's a little example. It's got a little bit of feathers in the back, and then it's got a popper head on the front. So obviously this one does not sink. It's a float on the top water surface, but it makes very, very good if you're fishing very, very shallow water, either in the back of a cove or in a creek. And it's really just an awesome fly. When you're catching them on popper flies, you know you're having a blast, and they are so much fun. I've caught panfish, trout, small bass, everything on those flies, so I definitely give them a shot. Now to touch up on the last thing of gear that I recommend for everyone, let's talk about what I'm wearing here. This is a fly fishing vest. So the coolest thing about this thing is how much storage it has in it. It has two giant compartments right here on the top. As you can see, I got my flies in there, and then I also got another front pocket here. It's got little mesh pockets on the front. It's even got pockets right here on the side to put things in, so you can really just carry everything you need on you at one time. It's got a bigger back pocket right here, a big back pouch, and this is just so for when you're off fly fishing. You know, you're typically on foot. You can be in a boat, but most people fish creeks or rivers while they're fly fishing, so they're typically on foot. So this makes it so when you're walking, you can have everything on you in a very, very easy access place, and you do not have to be like, oh, where's this, and go search for a tackle box. You can just simply just whoop, boom, and you're there. Coolest thing about this vest, though, hands down, is it makes even carrying my rod easier. I know it sounds weird, but it does. So look, down here, I actually have this loop that's meant for my butt of my rod to go into, so I'll slide him in there, take him right here, and then we get this little guy up here. He comes, if I can unvelcro him, there we go, unvelcro him, and boom, attach him right there, and that holds my rod for me. So if I ever need to rig up and tie on a fly, or if I ever just want to carry it like this, the vest does it for me. I don't even have to do it, and that is super cool. And like I said, the most helpful thing is when I'm trying to tie on a new fly and rig up, I don't have to be like, where am I going to set my fly rod down? On a tree, on a rock, anything like that? Boom, right into the vest. And I'd highly recommend these to everything because they just have a ton of storage. You can have everything on you, and they make travel easier. They're just a win-win. So obviously, fly fishing is a method of fishing that's pretty much like the art and the simple, the beauty, the calm of fishing. It's a lot calmer, it's a lot lighter in sorts, you know, of other types of fishing, and I like to consider it one of fishing's most beautiful art. So thank you guys so much for watching. I hope this helps. I hope this guys can get you guys into fly fishing. Like I said, all the fly fishing gear I get is from the White River Company. They're a fantastic company for fly fishing stuff. And if you want to look boss while you're fly fishing, go check out Follow the Action Outdoor Lines. I'll put their link in my description, and you can get shirts like this or even like this, and they have tons of other designs on there, of course, but really they're just a fantastic company. You can use code UNREAL. I'll put that in the description as well, and that'll get you 20% off, and that supports me a ton on my goal, and I would really appreciate that, guys. And make sure to also help me out. Make sure to hit that subscribe button and come and watch next time. Thank you guys so much for joining me on Fly Fishing 101, and happy fishing, y'all.